I became friends with the strange guy at work that everyone mocked. He completely transformed my life and exposed our office forever. So, let me tell you about my old job. I'm 28, and I used to work at this tech-adjacent company in Phoenix. We did software implementation for healthcare systems, which, trust me, sounds way more impressive than it is. Basically, we're the ones who show up when hospitals buy new computer systems, trying to explain how buttons work to doctors who absolutely do not want to be there. My official title was Implementation Specialist, which meant I spent half my day writing documentation nobody read and the other half on video calls, repeating the same 3 features over and over. The office itself was a classic corporate nightmare, an open floor plan that someone with a LinkedIn thought leadership addiction swore would boost collaboration, but really just meant you could hear everyone chewing, typing, breathing. Fluorescent lights made everyone look half dead by 9 a.m., and the gray carpet looked like it hadn't changed since 2008. Our break room fridge? It was a biohazard, always harboring someone's moldy, unclaimed lunch. Cubicles were those low-wall disasters where you could see everyone but never quite make eye contact, making you feel constantly aware yet completely isolated. My desk faced a window, which sounds nice, but it just meant I watched the parking lot all day, contemplating my life choices. HR would send these aggressively cheerful Motivation Monday emails with way too many exclamation points, while everyone else was secretly dying from burnout. Seriously, half the office pretended they were startup founders in hoodies talking about disruption, all while doing the same boring work as everyone else. When this story starts, I was 5 feet 10 inches and pushing 285 pounds. I'm not looking for sympathy, just setting the scene. I'd been heavy my whole adult life and tried everything. Keto made me miserable. Intermittent fasting just made me hangrier, leading to a late-night chip massacre. That new app TikTok hyped? Rage deleted it when it dared to ask my emotional state before eating a sandwich. Weight Watchers in a church basement? Never made it past the second meeting, feeling worse about myself than when I started. The gym felt like a judgment zone. I even paid a membership for 4 months without stepping foot inside, just telling myself next week. The truth is, I was miserable. I avoided mirrors, hated photos, and got winded climbing 2 flights of stairs. My desk drawer was packed with antacids because my diet was basically whatever came fastest in a drive-through bag. My stomach was in constant rebellion. I'd convinced myself this was just my normal. Other people got to be healthy and attractive. I was just the fat guy at the office everyone was polite to, but nobody actually noticed. My social life was non-existent. Dating apps were a cruel joke. Ghosted the second an in-person meeting was suggested because my profile photos were carefully angled lies from 3 years ago. Then there was Kyle. He sat 3 desks down from me. Early to mid-40s, wiry build, that lean look you get from actually using your body. He always had this calm energy, a quiet smile, like he knew something nobody else did. He wore loose cargo pants from 2003 and old band tees that looked like they'd survived a war. Everything about him screamed he just didn't care what anyone thought, which, in a corporate office, is basically a giant target. His desk was minimal, computer, a water bottle that looked like it had scaled mountains, and a small framed photo of a hiking trail in Sedona. My desk, meanwhile, was a small explosion of papers, empty coffee cups, and stress. I first really noticed Kyle during my second week. It was 12:03 p.m. I'm eating a sad desk sandwich, and I glance out the window. This man, Kyle, is lying flat on top of his Subaru Outback in the parking lot. Not sitting, not leaning, full-on horizontal, shoes off, arms behind his head, eyes closed. Completely dead to the world. And this is Phoenix in July. It was probably 95 degrees, the asphalt shimmering, and he's napping on his car roof like it's the most natural thing in the world. The office group chat went absolutely insane. People were zooming in with their phones, screenshotting, sharing it. Someone called him the monk. Others joked about him being homeless. Our team lead quipped he was one breakdown away from a New Mexico commune. Everyone thought it was hilarious. They created fake LinkedIn posts from his perspective, photoshopped his face onto a Tibetan monk. It became a running joke for weeks. But Kyle? He didn't seem to notice or care. Every single day, same routine. He'd arrive at 6:45 a.m., an hour and 15 minutes before anyone else. Change into old athletic clothes in his car, then do a full yoga routine in the parking spot next to his Outback, barefoot on a mat. Sun salutations, warrior poses, tree pose, the whole deal. He'd hold positions for what felt like 5 minutes, absolutely still. Then, around noon, he'd eat lunch in 10 minutes flat. Always the same, some kind of homemade grain bowl in glass containers. Never fast food. He'd eat quickly, deliberately, then head out for his 20-minute car roof nap. Didn't matter if it was hot, windy, or if people were watching. He'd just lie there, then get up and go back to work like nothing happened. Sometimes I'd stay late and see him out there again, standing with his eyes closed during sunset, doing slow breathing exercises. People would stop and stare, pull out their phones to record him. Someone even said, "This is peak Phoenix energy," and everyone laughed. His nickname became Car Guy, which was both accurate and incredibly dismissive. People would do exaggerated stretches as they walked past his desk. Someone even printed a fake flyer for Kyle's wellness cult and taped it in the break room. HR took it down, but the damage was done. I'll be honest, I laughed too. Not out loud, but I'd roll my eyes when he walked by with his bright green smoothies that smelled like grass clippings. The whole office knew that smell because he'd blend them in the break room with an ancient blender, the sound alone enough to make people scatter. But here's the thing, I was falling apart. My weight was the obvious problem, but it wasn't the only one. I was exhausted, couldn't focus, my back hurt constantly from sitting. I'd just collapse on the couch after work, order takeout, watch Netflix until I fell asleep. My doctor gave me a handout about portion control that was probably older than me. Super helpful. Then, one Thursday in late August, I completely lost it. It was one of those days where the universe just aligns to kick you when you're down. I'd skipped breakfast, was late again. Lunch was a sad desk salad that tasted like regret. Around 3 p.m., I stood up too fast, got dizzy, and had to grab my desk. Nobody noticed, but I felt pathetic, like my body was actively failing. Then an email from my mom. "Are you coming to your cousin's wedding? Do you need me to check if they have chairs that accommodate everyone comfortably?" She didn't mean to be cruel, but my own mother wondering if chairs would support me? That was a special kind of wake-up call. I went to the stairwell, sat on the concrete steps, and just cried. Not a dramatic sob, just quiet tears. Hopeless, stuck, so tired of being this person. 28 years old, decent job, my own apartment, and I couldn't even climb stairs without getting winded. I couldn't fit into normal clothes. I avoided dating because the thought of someone seeing me without a shirt made me want to disappear. I couldn't remember the last time I'd felt good about my body. I sat there for 20 minutes, scrolling Instagram, looking at people with their gym selfies and hiking photos, while I was crying about chairs in a corporate stairwell. Then, something shifted. Desperation, maybe? I wiped my face, stood up, and walked straight out to the parking lot. Kyle was there, of course, mid-afternoon yoga session, completely in his own world. I walked up to him and just blurted out, "Hey, can I join you?" He looked at me, didn't hesitate, didn't question it. Just smiled and said, "Of course," patting the ground next to him. That was it. No lecture, no weird questions, no judgment. Of course, like it was the most normal thing in the world for an overweight guy in khakis to suddenly want to do yoga in a parking lot. He showed me basic stretches, explained breathing techniques in this calm voice that, somehow, wasn't condescending. We didn't talk much, but for the first time in years, my body felt useful instead of embarrassing. Everything hurt afterward, but in a good way. The next day, Kyle waved at me from the parking lot. Just a simple, "You coming?" through the window. I grabbed my water bottle and went out. We did stretches, some basic yoga poses. He'd demonstrate, I'd attempt, probably looking ridiculous, and he'd make small adjustments to my form. Never once made me feel stupid. Day 3, same thing. Day 4, same thing. By the end of week 2, it was routine. I was meeting Kyle in the parking lot every day. The office definitely noticed, but I was too focused on not dying during Downward Dog to care what anyone thought. Week 3, Kyle introduced walking laps. Yoga for 20 minutes, then loops around the building, talking about random stuff. He told me about his previous miserable, overweight life in finance, a heart scare at 38 that changed everything. Now he treated fitness as non-negotiable. By week 4, those walks turned into slow jogs. Kyle never pushed too hard. He let me set the pace, and when I needed to stop, he stopped too. No judgment, just quiet support. Then, one Thursday evening after work, we ran a full 5K together. 3.1 miles. I finished, sweaty, red-faced, wheezing like a dying accordion, but I finished. I'd never run that far in my life. It felt like the biggest accomplishment of the year. That night, Kyle emailed me a custom workout plan. I opened it on my phone, sitting on my couch, and just stared. It was a detailed Google Doc, week by week, exercises, rest days, progression goals. Notes like, you'll hate this week, but trust me, and you're going to feel like a beast after this one. At the bottom, long-term goals had half marathon and full marathon written out. This man, who everyone at work mocked, had spent hours of his personal time building something custom just for me. He believed I could run a marathon. Meanwhile, most days I struggled to believe I could make it through a meeting without falling asleep. I sat there, holding back tears. Nobody at that company had ever bothered to ask how I was actually doing. People asked, "How's it going?" in the hallway, but nobody really wanted an honest answer. But Kyle? He just showed up, consistently, with zero expectations in return. We weren't best friends. He was still his own weird Zen thing, but he was the kindest person I'd met in years. By month 2, I was down 23 pounds. My pants fit. I was sleeping. My back didn't hurt. I had energy instead of existing in a fog of exhaustion and antacids. And that's when the office really started getting nosy. One morning, I'm in the break room, filling my hydro flask. I'd started adding lemon slices because Kyle said it helped with digestion, basic stuff, but it felt like progress. Patricia, our office manager, walks in. Mid-50s, always in Lululemon knockoffs with the tag still visible. She's the one who schedules Wellness Wednesdays, where she orders 60 bagels and 5 tubs of cream cheese, then acts confused when nobody loses weight. She treats her Veni caramel macchiato with extra whip like it's a protein shake. She sees my lemon water, does this exaggerated double take. "So, I see you've joined Kyle's cult," she says with a smug giggle. I just stared. "What?" You know, she laughs, yoga in the dirt, grass clipping smoothies, running around the building like it's a track meet. He's totally brainwashed you. Something about her tone just pissed me off. Not the joke, but the condescension. Like helping someone get healthy was a scam. You mean the guy who helped me run my first 5K? Yeah, total brainwash. Next thing you know, I'll be drinking water and doing my taxes on time. God forbid. Patricia's smile froze. She tried to backpedal. I was just joking, but I was done. I left my lemon water right there and walked out. Later that day, Kyle texted me, "Heard you had your first cult accusation. Congrats. Level 2 unlocked." His dry humor was unmatched. But Patricia's comment spread. The next week, the entire office was watching me, whispering when I left for lunch, making comments about my water bottle. One guy from accounting actually asked if I was dating Kyle, as if my weight loss could only be explained by a romance. Heaven forbid a person make positive life changes for themselves. Then HR sent me an anonymous wellness check email. The subject line, "Just checking in." The message was corporate speak garbage about making sure I wasn't feeling pressured by any coworkers. They were treating Kyle like a pyramid scheme fitness guru handing out resistance bands instead of essential oils. Meanwhile, Kyle was out in the parking lot, doing tree pose under a mesquite tree, completely unbothered and unaware. I finally told him everything during one of our walks. Patricia's comments, the HR email, the dating rumor. Kyle didn't say anything for a full minute. We just kept walking. Then he stopped, turned to me, and said, "You want me to disappear? I'll start working. Out before hours. You don't need this headache because of me." That hit me hard. This guy was willing to change his entire routine, the thing that kept him sane and healthy, just so I wouldn't catch heat from office gossip. "No," I said. "They need to see it. They need to get used to people actually taking care of themselves instead of just talking about it during Wellness Wednesday while eating cream cheese." He stared at me for a second, then nodded, like I'd passed some kind of loyalty test. The next morning, we showed up even earlier. Same spot, yoga mats out, stretching, breathing. A few people stopped to stare from the lobby windows. One woman pulled out her phone. Kyle noticed, but didn't react, just flowed through his routine. Within 2 weeks, something weird started happening. Other people began joining us. First, James from IT, an overweight guy in his early 30s who always looked exhausted. He showed up one morning with a yoga mat still in the package from Target. "Is this thing open to anyone?" he asked. Kyle just smiled and made room. Then Angela from customer service, recovering from knee surgery. She saw us and figured, why not? Then 2 more people from the second floor. Then someone's friend who didn't even work at our company. By week 4, we had 8 regulars. Kyle never advertised, never charged, never made it weird or exclusive. He just showed up and people joined. We started calling it the Dirt Club because we were literally stretching on dirt and grass in a parking lot. Someone even made t-shirts as a joke. Kyle loved it. The office reaction was mixed. Some thought it was great. Others thought we were performative. Patricia absolutely hated it because it was organic and she couldn't take credit. She called Kyle into her office. He told me later, while we were cooling down, that she'd suggested he lead the company wellness committee, saying his passion would be a great fit. Kyle just laughed. "I'm good," he told her. "I like what we're doing in the parking lot. No meetings, no budgets, no corporate approval needed." Patricia apparently didn't like that answer. She launched into a speech about him missing an opportunity to make a real difference. Kyle cut her off. "The people in the parking lot are the platform. That's the real difference." 2 days later, the Wellness Committee announced their new initiative, mandatory standing desks, cheap manual crank ones nobody used, and a company-sponsored walking challenge that required downloading an app to track steps publicly. Half the office cheated, the other half ignored it. Meanwhile, the Dirt Club kept growing. We hit 12 members, then 15. People from 20s to 50s, different fitness levels, all just showing up and trying. James from IT brought his teenage son, who joined permanently. Angela convinced her sister, who convinced her husband. It was this organic growth that nobody planned or marketed. People started bringing fruit to share after workouts, energy bars. It became an unspoken potluck. Kyle would bring homemade protein balls that actually tasted good. We had a WhatsApp group chat that evolved into people sharing victories, not just fitness stuff either. Someone got a promotion. Someone's kid got into their dream college. Someone finally told off their toxic mother-in-law. We were becoming actual friends, which sounds cheesy, but it was true. Most of us spent 40 hours a week with coworkers we tolerated at best. This was different. This was people showing up for each other. One woman, Rachel, 39, was recovering from a brutal divorce. Her husband had left her for someone younger, and she'd spent 6 months in survival mode. She told us our morning routine was the only thing keeping her sane. She'd never been athletic, never thought of herself as strong. But she started showing up every day at 6:30 a.m. First week, she could barely make it through warm-ups. Second week, she finished the session. By week 8, she was leading stretches while Kyle demonstrated modifications. 3 months in, she ran her first mile without stopping and cried at the end. Kyle walked over, handed her a banana like it was an Olympic medal, and said, "Now the real work begins." That's the thing about Kyle. He had this way of making achievements feel like starting points, not finish lines. Nothing was about showing off or comparing. It was just about being slightly better than you were yesterday. He'd celebrate a first push-up with the same energy as a 10K. Progress was progress. That's why people trusted him. He never made it about ego, never posted on social media, never tried to monetize it. He just showed up, helped people, went home. Which, of course, meant someone had to try and ruin it. 6 weeks into the Dirt Club's existence, we showed up one morning and found a laminated notice taped to the gazebo in the parking lot. Friendly reminder. Any non-company sanctioned fitness gatherings involving employees must take place off property to avoid liability risks. Thank you for understanding. No signature, no contact info, just a passive-aggressive corporate message. We weren't even using company equipment, Angela said. Just our own mats, our own time. Kyle walked over, peeled it off, read it, then crumpled it up. It's their parking lot, he said. So we move. He'd already been thinking about it. There was a public park about 10 minutes away with a big open field, shaded areas, even a trail loop. We started meeting there before and after work. Same crew, different location. We joked we were now the underground dirt club, which sounded way cooler than it was. Then something unexpected happened. More people started coming, not just from our office, but friends, siblings, random people who'd heard about some guy doing free workouts in the park. Word was spreading. Kyle never advertised, never created social media. But the group grew. 10 people, 15, 18. One Saturday, we hit 24. We weren't just coworkers anymore, we were becoming a community. People brought fruit to share. Someone set up a WhatsApp group. Kyle remained the center, but never positioned himself as a leader. He'd demonstrate, offer modifications, but treated everyone as equals. It was the most low-pressure, genuine fitness environment I'd ever experienced. Which, naturally, meant our office couldn't stand it. Brett from sales started making comments. Brett was one of those guys who peaked in college, still wore his fraternity letters on a hat, and constantly talked about his bench press max from 2015. He'd see me in the hallway, still doing the cult thing? When are you guys drinking the Kool-Aid? Heard you're really into parking lot yoga. That's cute. Kyle's probably charging people eventually, right? It's always a grift. I mostly ignored him, because arguing with Brett was like arguing with a wall that went to Arizona State. But then, 2 weeks into our park sessions, we showed up one Saturday morning and found another laminated notice taped. To the gazebo, unauthorized group fitness activities may require a permit. Repeated violations could result in fines. No signature, no contact info, just a threat. Kyle peeled it off and smiled. Guess we're getting popular. But I was done being passive. This had Patricia and Brett written all over it. Maybe they actually contacted the parks department. Maybe they just printed a fake notice. Either way, they were trying to kill something good because it didn't come from them. I went home and wrote the longest email of my life. 4 paragraphs, single-spaced, copied HR, Patricia, our department head. I laid out everything, how they'd mocked Kyle just for being different, how they excluded him from the wellness committee despite him creating the most successful wellness initiative in company history, how they tried to force us off company property, and then followed us to a public park to harass us there. How their official wellness programs were performative garbage while the Dirt Club was actually changing lives. I ended with, if anyone gets hurt from this group, it'll be from you trying to kill something beautiful. Not from Kyle trying to help people. I sent it at 11 p.m. on a Sunday night. It felt good. Probably too good. No response Monday. No response Tuesday. I figured they were ignoring it or consulting legal. Wednesday morning, I came in early for a meeting, walked past the break room, and saw Kyle's locker. Someone had scratched the words cult leader into the metal. Deep, jagged letters, like they'd used keys or a box cutter. They really went in on it. I took a photo, sent it to Kyle with a text, "You might want to come in today." People walked past that locker all morning. Not one person said anything. Not one person reported it. Everyone just pretended not to see it. Kyle showed up around 10 a.m. I was in a meeting, but I saw him through the glass wall, walking across the floor. His usual smile was gone, completely blank expression. No water bottle, no yoga mat, just walking slowly toward the break room like he was about to do something he'd regret, but had to do anyway. I excused myself from the meeting and followed him. He stood in front of his locker for a solid minute, just staring at the scratched letters. Said absolutely nothing. Then he turned around. By now, people were watching. You know that feeling when a room gets that weird, quiet tension because everyone knows something is about to happen? That energy was everywhere. Kyle raised his voice. Not yelling, just loud enough for everyone on the floor to hear. "All right, let's talk." Complete silence. 20 people within earshot stopped what they were doing. I'm not here to save anyone. I'm not a leader. I'm not building a brand. I'm just a guy who stretches in a parking lot because it's free and it helps me feel human. He paused. Nobody moved. Some of you have laughed, mocked, whispered. That's fine. I've heard worse in my life. But if you're going to scratch a word into my locker, if you're going to call me something behind my back, at least say it to my face. Still nothing. You could hear the HVAC humming. He pointed at the locker. That word, cult leader, that's just projection. You're scared someone else found meaning in something you didn't create. That's what bothers you. At that point, Brett walked out from behind the break room door, arms crossed, a smug look on his face like he was ready for a confrontation. Kyle saw him, didn't even flinch. You think this is about workouts? It's not. It's about showing up consistently with kindness and zero angle. And some of you don't know what that looks like, so you mock it. Then he looked directly at Patricia, who had conveniently appeared from her office. I applied for a job here just like everyone else. I show up, do the work, clock in and out. But somehow, me helping people become healthier became a threat to whatever corporate wellness theater you're performing. He turned back to the room. I don't want your approval. I don't need a committee seat or a budget or permission. But if you're going to paint me as something I'm not, at least be brave enough to put your name on it. Then he walked over to his locker, grabbed the door, and ripped it completely off the hinges. I'm not exaggerating. He just lifted the metal door off like it was cardboard, walked over to Patricia's desk, and dropped it down with a calm, quiet statement. Fix your culture. Then he left. No yelling, no HR meeting, no breakdown. Just walked out of the building. I found him that evening at the park. He was sitting cross-legged on the grass with his eyes closed, completely alone. I sat down next to him and asked, "You good?" He opened his eyes and smiled. That was 8 years of calm gone in 2 minutes. Then we both laughed, because what else are you going to do? A week later, Kyle gave his notice. No dramatic email, no farewell cupcakes, no exit interview where he aired grievances. Just a quiet resignation letter on Patricia's desk and a box of his stuff from his cubicle. A few of us walked him to his car on his last day. He hugged each person, looked tired but content. Then he turned to me specifically and said, "It's your turn now." I didn't fully understand what he meant at the time, but it became clear when he sent me his workout plans, his guides, his contact lists, everything he'd built for the Dirt Club. No pressure to use them, just resources if I wanted to keep things going. So I did. The Dirt Club is still running. We meet every Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday at 6:30 a.m. Rain or shine. No sign-up sheet, no membership fees. Just a group of people trying to be slightly better versions of themselves while breathing deep and remembering we exist outside of job titles, office politics, and scratched-up lockers. We're up to 31 regular members now. Ages range from 22 to 58. Different backgrounds, different fitness levels, different goals. But everyone shows up with the same energy Kyle brought. No judgment, no ego, just consistent effort. Some people from our original office still come. Angela's knee is completely healed, and she ran a 10K last month. James from IT is down 47 pounds and started rock climbing. Rachel's training for a half marathon. And me? I'm down 68 pounds from where I started. I ran my first half marathon in October and, yeah, I cried at the finish line. Kyle's workout plan is still taped to my fridge. As for Kyle himself, he moved to Flagstaff, bought a small cabin in the mountains, and started running wellness retreats. Nothing fancy or expensive, just weekend sessions where people come up, disconnect from phones, do yoga, cook simple meals, and sit around a fire talking. I went to one last month. His cabin was this small A-frame tucked into the pines, with a view that made you understand why people move to mountains. It was quiet. Actually quiet. Not city quiet where you still hear traffic and sirens. Just wind through trees and birds. No corporate nonsense. No office politics. No performance metrics. We did morning yoga as the sun came up, the air so cold you could see your breath, but it felt clean in a way Phoenix air never does. We made vegetable soup from scratch, sat by a fire, and just talked about life without anyone trying to sell anything or prove anything or one-up each other. Just honest conversation about where we'd been and where we wanted to go. Kyle looked happy. Actually happy, not performing happiness. He moved slower, talked softer, smiled more. He told me he should have left corporate work years ago, but was too scared of not having a stable income, or health insurance, or the safety net of a regular paycheck. The locker incident was the push he needed to stop living in fear. Sometimes the worst thing that happens to you turns out to be the best thing, he said while we were hiking one afternoon. I was miserable in that office, just going through the motions. Now I wake up and actually want to be awake. We talked about the Dirt Club and how it was still going strong. He smiled and said he wasn't surprised. It was never about me. It was about people wanting to show up for themselves and having a space to do that. You just maintain the space. On my last night there, we sat around the fire with 6 other people. Someone asked Kyle if he had any regrets about the office situation. He thought about it for a minute. Only that I didn't rip that locker door off sooner, he said. Everyone laughed, but he was serious. I spent 8 years trying to be small enough that people wouldn't notice me. Small enough that they wouldn't mock me or make me a target. But they mocked me anyway. Should have just been myself louder from the start. What would you have done if you were in my shoes, watching something so good get torn down by office politics? Or have you ever had someone like Kyle in your life, who just shows up and changes everything for the better? Tell me what you think in the comments below. I genuinely want to hear your stories.